Thank you again for joining us. And today we are presenting the webinar on navigating temporary foreign worker program to hire workers in the landscape and nursery industry. And it's done as a part of our partnership with the Canadian Nursery and Landscape Association. I'm Victoria Schuler, and I'm Project Manager HR Services with the Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council. And Owen is here today. He's our marketing assistant. He will be helping with some housekeeping and technical issues if we have any. Hopefully we won't. And the webinar will last between 30 and 40 minutes, and after there will be a Q&A session. So for the Q&A, just write your questions, and I hope we will be able to answer those. If not, we will take them back and we will get in touch with you. So let's start. And the first is about CAHRC. Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council is a nonprofit organization that is focused on addressing human resource issues facing agricultural businesses across Canada. And our mission is to research, develop, and communicate solutions to human resource issues identified by the Canadian agriculture to ensure that agriculture sector has an access to the skilled workforce it requires to remain competitive and sustainable. We have a long-term relationship with CNLA. And as a part of our partnership, we do educational webinars on temporary foreign worker program and other HR issues as well. As a part of the temporary foreign worker program file, we coordinate so-called QM program, which stands for Quality Agri Workforce Management Program. And this is a separate program run by CAHRC. And the purpose of this program is to help employers with different tools and resources required to hire temporary foreign worker program, as the process can be complicated and navigating the program could be an issue as well, especially for the landscape and nursery industry. We will talk about it, since sometimes you're depending on your nature of business, you can be primary agriculture or not, which brings a lot of different conditions. And a little bit about myself. I was born in Ukraine, relocated to Canada over 8 years ago, and I have experience in HR recruitment and global immigration. I'm also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant since 2018. So in the past, I worked with the temporary foreign worker program and submitted LMA applications for employers in the agricultural industry, or advised on other ways to hire temporary foreign workers. I joined CAHRC team in January 2023, and it's been a great year so far. The webinar is similar to the webinar that we've done last year. So if you've been here last year, maybe you don't need to listen to all of it, but I will start with the updates on the temporary foreign worker program that happened over the course of the year that might be important. And I also talk a little bit about the recognized employer pilot, the information that we were able to collect from open sources or from our communication with Service Canada. And after that, we'll just talk about different streams to hire temporary foreign workers. So we talk about the NOC codes. So if you listen to that in the past, it will be very similar to what happened, to what we heard last year, but you're welcome to stay in as well. So let's start with the news and updates. The temporary foreign worker program always changes. And here are some news that you probably should be aware of or keep in mind. The first one is that starting in January this year, applications are now accepted for recognized employer pilot phase 2. And we talked about recognized employer pilot in the next couple of minutes. But if you are not for primary agriculture, this is something that you may consider as well. The other important announcement is that starting from January 1st, employers are required to annually review the wages of the temporary foreign workers to make sure that it reflects the increases of the prevailing wage rates for their occupation in their economic region. And this can be sourced from job bank. So, which means like if you have a foreign worker that was hired, you need to start reviewing their wages annually, like from the date of hiring. And usually the wage review is done by job bank annually in November. The other news that might be interesting, especially if you're looking to hire workers that don't want to do an LMIA, is that International Experience Canada program is now open for 2024, and they already done a round of invitations. We will touch base on that in the presentation, but shortly IEC is the program that is run based on the bilateral agreements between Canada and other 35 countries. And annually, over 90,000 young people between age 18 and 35 can come to Canada and work usually on an open work permit between 12 and 24 months. And last year, Canada updated the agreements with Finland, Iceland, and Ukraine, and also approved the agreement with South Korea and the UK. So this is an option like right now, if you're looking to hire somebody just for a season and you don't want to do an LMIA. The other news is that effective December 7, 2023, the waiver on the 20-hour per week limit on the number of hours international students can work in Canada was extended until April 30th, 2024. Which means if you hiring international students, like you can still continue employing them and you don't need to limit their work hours to 20 hours per week. The other important change is that in October 2023, period of LMIA validity approval letters were reduced from 18 months to 12 months. 18 months was a temporary measure made due to COVID public policy, which means that you have 12 months to find a temporary foreign worker, and temporary foreign worker must apply for a work permit before the expiry of your LMIA. If your LMIA expired while a temporary foreign worker is waiting for a work permit application to be processed outside of Canada, it's not a problem. The main thing is to apply before they expire. And just more news. I'm not sure whether it's relevant for the landscape industry, but in October, Government of Canada started so-called Can Work Philippines pilot program. And this program is aimed for employers that are hiring workers from Philippines, either at least 50 temporary foreign workers or workers in the critical occupations, including agri-food. And this will allow to employers to book medical examinations and biometrics in group and make group appointments, which will reduce the processing time for the work permit applications for workers from Philippines. The other news is recognized employer pilot. The phase 1 became effective in September 12th, and the phase 1 included occupation in the primary agriculture. Another thing, like if you are hiring foreign workers and you are thinking you need to advertise, for employers that are hiring in the primary agriculture position, the advertising waiver was extended, and it was extended until June 30th, 2024. However, if you're hiring not in the primary agriculture, advertising is still required. We'll talk about advertising requirements a bit later. And this is probably an old news, but in case you haven't had a chance to explore it, temporary foreign worker program now moved to LMIA online applications. Employers must have an active job bank account to submit an LMIA. It's quite straightforward and easy to navigate. So I hope you're enjoying that instead of doing your paper applications. And news from 2022, the NOC system was changed from 2016 to 2021. So sometimes we're still using the old NOC codes, but most of the employers are now starting to use the new NOC codes that have been introduced in 2021. And this is the slide about the recognized employer pilot. So in order to assist employers with the LMIA application, especially employers that have been submitting their LMIA application every year, and in order to decrease an administrative burden, Canadian government announced so-called recognized employer pilot. And the pilot is rolled over in 2 phases. Phase 1 in September 2023. They are like starting with primary agriculture mostly. So for landscape and nursery, it's now called 85103, nursery and greenhouse laborers, which means like this occupation is eligible. And phase 2 occupation, there is also like an occupation list that is published on Service Canada website. I did take a look at it prior to the webinar, and to my understanding, to my knowledge, landscape architects is something that can be included. All the other occupations are from the food industry, from the medical industry, so I didn't find anything else that is applicable to landscape and nursery, unfortunately. What is a recognized employer pilot? So recognized employer pilot it allows employers to benefit from a new validity of an LMIA, which is 36 months, which means if you submitted an LMIA and if you got approved, your LMIA is valid for 36 months, which is nice because we just talked in the, previously that the validity was reduced from 18 to 12 months. So which means like for 3 years, you don't need to worry about your LMIA applications, which is great. The other thing as well, like you don't need to do a separate application to apply for recognized employer pilot. When you're doing your LMIA online application, there will be just a checkbox. Are you willing to apply for the recognized employer pilot or not, which is nice. And to be eligible, employer must have at least 3 positive LMIA decisions in the last 5 years. There is some flexibility if you didn't have LMIA applications due to COVID, and you have to meet high standards of working and living conditions. You need to have a good history with temporary foreign worker program, and you need to adhere to the regular temporary foreign worker program requirements. The other thing that it comes with certain strings. Nobody knows yet how it will look like, but if you're applying for recognized employer pilot and if you would like to enjoy 36 months validity of your LMIA, you need to agree to certain to so-called check-ins with Service Canada on the employer compliance. So when we talked to Service Canada about that, we didn't get like a clear answer how these check-ins will look like. What we understand, it will likely be a regular, like we don't know how long, how regular, but you will be contacted by Service Canada employer compliance team, and they will ask you to provide certain documentation to make sure that you are following the temporary foreign worker program rules. Usually it's like pay stubs, information about accommodation. If you've done employer compliance inspections in the past, like I think the documentation will be very similar. So like always keep your documentation organized, keep your records for 6 years if you would like to have a temporary foreign worker program. Otherwise, it's a lot of stress, like when the employer compliance inspections come. So these are all the news about the temporary foreign worker program that happened last year. Now I'm going to talk about the basics and how to submit an LMIA, how to choose the correct stream. And if you have any questions, again, like let us know, and Owen will be able to read the questions as well. So, and now I have a question. Have you ever hired temporary foreign workers in the past? And what is your main challenge when it comes to hiring foreign workers? You can put your questions in Q&A and chat. Oh, there was someone who just commented that they're a landscape maintenance and construction company. and they sign off. Like, that's okay. Like, if you are in the same business, we will be talking about regular streams as well, not only primary agriculture. Okay, so one employer is thinking about hiring a temporary foreign worker. The first thing, we go to the Government of Canada website. And this is how it looks like. So hire temporary foreign worker with the labor market impact assessment. And it provides you with a variety of different streams and different options. So basically, there are a few ways how a temporary foreign worker can be hired in the landscape and nursery industry. It could be high or low wage or primary agriculture. Global talent stream is a possibility as well, but it's more for highly skilled occupations. So I'm not going to talk about the global talent stream a lot, but we will talk about some regular streams. On this slide, it's like so-called LMIA process roadmap. And basically, I would say like there are 4 steps. They are complicated, but it can be broken down into first determining your stream and eligibility, whether the position is included in the primary agriculture or whether it could be a regular stream, what is your NOC code, what wage you need to pay, and what are the requirements toward the working conditions and accommodation. Do you need to provide a housing inspection or not? So that's kind of the step 1 is mostly like preparation work to determine like what you need to do, what you can do, and if you would like to do it in the business. The second step is the preparation of the LMIA application. And as a part of the preparation of the LMIA application, especially if you haven't submitted LMIA in the past, you need to provide a proof of your business legitimacy. If you had a positive LMIAs in the past 2 years, this is not required. Usually proof of business legitimacy is your CRA documentation, your business license. It could be an attestation letter from the accountant or lawyer. So there is a list of documents that you must provide. And basically, you need to prove to Service Canada that you're operating like legitimately, actively, the active business, and that you're making enough profit to be able to afford to hire a temporary foreign worker or temporary foreign workers. Also, certain provinces require provincial legislation. I will talk about that as well. As a part of the application process, you will also be required to do recruitment and advertising activities, especially if you're hiring not in the primary agriculture. For primary agriculture, housing inspection is required. And depending on where you are, like sometimes employers need to wait for weeks before the inspector can come, and like online or paper application. But right now, like 99% of the applications are online. Otherwise, you can request for like certain special considerations, and they may accept your paper application. Step number 3 is the assessment by Service Canada. And basically, once the application is submitted, it goes into that black box, and sometimes we don't know what's happening, but I would say the first review is that they want to make sure that you submitted all the documentation. If not all the documentation is submitted, the application might be returned, or like additional documentation might be requested. And after that, when it gets to assessment stage, basically what Service Canada is looking at, it's an actively operating business, that employers actively engage in the business, that there is a reasonable employment need to hire temporary foreign worker, that employer is able to fulfill a job offer. So they're looking at your financial statement to see if you can afford a temporary foreign worker. Past compliance, whether there is a labor shortage, whether you determined your stream correctly. And it usually ends with the interview with a Service Canada officer. Recently, especially for primary agriculture positions, I'm not sure about other positions, but sometimes phone interview is not even required. There is just an email with like a few questions, or if the application is pretty straightforward, there is just a letter of the approval, which is great. And the last step is, yes, you got your LMIA, that's great, but depending on where your temporary foreign worker is from, you may need to wait for a while before they can come over, because the processing times outside of Canada vary. And once the temporary foreign worker is here, there is an employer compliance. And that's when you need to follow everything that you stated in your application and keep records for 6 years. If there are any changes, modify your LMIA, review the temporary foreign worker wages, as we discussed earlier, and also be prepared to ESTC audits that may happen for various reasons. And so starting with the basics, the first is to define whether your business is in whether occupation is in primary agriculture or not, because primary agriculture occupations have a lot of exemptions, and the process is more straightforward. So primary agriculture is defined by the work duties, and it means that the duties must be performed within the boundaries of the farm, nursery, and greenhouse. And it will involve at least one activity, such as operation of agricultural machinery. There is also like activities related with animals and livestock. And the other one is planting care, harvesting, or preparation of crops, trees, sods, or other plants for the market. And be consistent with the NOC codes. I will explain a little bit later about the NOC codes.
A couple questions come in. So Jasmine has asked, can you discuss payment options only when approved?
If the question is related to the LMA application, if you're applying for not agricultural stream and there is a processing fee of $1,000, what happens after you submit your LMA with all the relevant documentations, there will be an email asking to provide a payment. And I think you have up to 72 hours to do that. So basically, they do a preliminary review just to make sure that you submitted all the documentation that is needed. You submit your payment, and after they look at the file more in detail. And there is another question. There's also a question in the regular chart. Oh, okay, you're welcome. Yeah, we'll keep asking. If I can answer, I will be answering those questions. So the important information for landscape and nurseries, and I took it from Service Canada operational manual, because when we were preparing the educational webinars for the employers, it's always good to see how their officers think, what are the instructions, and sometimes there is more information in their operational manual, what they need to do, A, B, C, and D. So when the officers assess LMA application, if we're talking about work at the retail nurseries, such as a garden center, it should not be considered work in the primary agriculture, especially if the work location is not within the boundary of the farm, nursery, or greenhouse. So if it's just a retail nursery, you need to follow the regular stream, which is low wage or high wage. And also work in the primary agriculture does not include landscape architects, if you have those, landscape laborers as well, we will talk about it too. So it's I know it's a bit confusing. We had employers that have a nursery and they grow trees and they sell trees, so they will look at the duties. But if it's just a garden center, it's not considered primary agriculture, unfortunately. The other thing is the NOC codes, and NOC code is NOC is a national occupational classification in Canada, and this is the system that describes and organizes work occupations. So the NOC code has changed from 2016 to 2022, and now we have 5 digits. And usually, again, you don't need to know that, but in case you're wondering, the first digit is a broader occupational category. For example, occupation in agriculture will always start with 8. The second digit is so-called tier category, and tier is I would say roughly it's skilled or not skilled. So tier is an acronym for training, education, experience, and responsibilities required to do the work. So low skilled would be tier 5, and higher skilled will be tier 0, 1, 2, 3. So, and there are 6 tiers, 0 to 5. And if you need to look for the no code, if you're not sure, what you can do, like you can go to government website and just like type the job duties or type the job title. Also, what is important to know that when the LMIA is assessed and the job duties is something that is primary rather than job title. So like in order to determine like whether the occupation is considered like primary agriculture or is like in a certain no code, they are looking for the job duties. And the job duties should be, I would say, at least 80% what is described in the no code. These are eligible NOCs for primary agriculture with the examples of titles. So you can take a look at it, like 82031, like landscape, grounds maintenance and horticulture, nursery and greenhouse laborers. And these are non-eligible NOCs for primary agriculture. So hopefully landscape and ground maintenance laborers. So for like a landscaping company that just does residential services, they won't be eligible for the primary agriculture. It should be a low wage to high wage stream. And so first you defined whether it's primary agriculture or not by the no code. And when you go to the no code, look at the job duties. The second, if you're not for primary agriculture, there are two more streams, low wage or high wage. How to determine it? We look at the median hourly wage. The median hourly wage is updated in spring, like for example, Alberta 28.85. So if it's at or below, we go to the low wage. If it's high, we go to the high wage. And once we determine it, like we can understand what stream we can hire a temporary foreign worker for agricultural or non-agricultural position. Again, I'm talking about agricultural just in case, but like if there is non-agricultural, we can talk about it later as well. So for agricultural, it's seasonal agricultural worker program. The position must be in the primary agriculture. The worker must be from Mexico, Caribbean countries, and the employment is for 8 months duration. Agricultural stream, it's for primary agriculture. The worker can be from any country, and the position could be for up to 24 months employment. It could be seasonal as well. If it's a non-agricultural position, we have high wage and low wage. I start with the low wage because I think it will be the most applicable. So it could be any occupation. The worker can be from any countries. It's up to 2 years of employment. You need to pay a processing fee of $1,000 per person, and there is a 20% cap. If you have 10 workers and less, you can only hire 2 workers. For the high wage, again, any country, any occupation, it could be up to 3 years of employment, still $1,000 processing fee per position. And you need to have so-called transition plan. If you're doing your LMA for the first time, you will be required to submit an information on the activities that you plan to undertake as an employer to try to hire Canadians or permanent residents. And there are 5 distinct activities. If you're doing your second or third LMIA and you submitted a transition plan in the past, they would circle back and they will ask you to provide a summary of the activities that you plan to do with the LMIA application where the transition plan was submitted. So just a mental note, like if you're doing this transition plan, I know that sometimes like you want to write this, and that, but make sure that you're able to execute all that because for future LMIA applications, you need to provide a proof. For example, advertising in the newspapers, participating in career fairs, posting your job on like a certain job boards or trying to reach out to underrepresented groups. So you need to provide the proofs of everything that was done and the results of that as well, which is a lot. And now we move forward, like it's just a flow chart that hopefully will help with LMIA stream determination. So again, first, is the position in the primary agriculture, yes or no? If it's yes, like we also need to see if the position is included in the national commodity list. And if yes, then the workers will be coming from, we ask ourselves, will the workers be coming from Mexico or Caribbean as seasonal workers? If yes, it could be a seasonal agricultural worker program. If we are not hiring workers from Mexico or Caribbean countries, it should be an agricultural stream. If the position is not the primary agriculture, we'll look at the wage, and the wage determines whether it's a high wage or low wage stream. And here is an example. So we are talking a green grass residential landscape maintenance, a company located in St. Albert, Alberta. That's where my husband is from. And they would like to hire a landscape laborer to provide general landscape and lawn maintenance services for residential clients across the town. The starting wage is $23 per hour, depending on the experience. After running a job ad for a couple of weeks, no Canadians or permanent residents applied. So they are considering hiring a foreign worker from Mexico to work for a season between May and October. How we will determine the stream? Let's try to do that. So is the position in the primary agriculture or not? The answer is no, because it's not on the premises of the farm. The worker will be servicing all the clients across the city. So it's not in the primary agriculture. And the next question we're asking if the wage is at or above the provincial median wage. The median wage in Alberta is $28.85. So the answer is no. And here it is. The worker must be hired in a low wage stream. I hope it's pretty straightforward. Here is another example. And Joe's Tree Nursery, Ontario-based business, specialized in potted and caliper trees. They are looking to hire 3 seasonal laborers to work at the production nursery near Milton. And the work will be from April to October. The business advertised positions in the local newspapers. They couldn't find any Canadians or permanent residents. And they know that another nursery, they hired farm workers from Mexico in the past. And they knew that there are some individuals that would like to come over. And the starting wage is $18.50 per hour. And they also have on-farm accommodation available for these workers. Let's try to determine the stream over here. So is the position in the primary agriculture? Yes, because like this is like tree nursery, and they're growing there over there. So yes. And the other one is the production included in the national commodity list? Yes. Will the workers be coming from Mexico or Caribbean countries as seasonal workers? The duration of employment is seasonal. It's from April to October, and the workers are from Mexico. So the answer is we need to use seasonal agricultural worker program. I hope it's clear. If you have any questions about the stream determination, feel free asking. And now we are going to move to like LMA streams overview, just in more detail. Like hopefully it will help you to compare and understand those streams better. And I'm talking about SOAP, ag stream, and the low wage. High wage is very similar to the low wage. Like if you have questions about that, I will be able to answer after. So first, who can apply? So in primary, like as a business, primary agriculture production must be included in the national commodity list, and it should be certain approved ag position for SOAP and ag stream. For the low wage, production is not included in the national commodity list, and it could be other non-agricultural positions. For the countries, SOAP is limited to the Mexico and 9 participating Caribbean countries. Extreme and low wage, the worker could be from any country. The other interesting thing is who is responsible to recruit the workers, and sometimes employers also asking the questions like how we can recruit, when we can start the recruitment process. So for the seasonal agricultural worker program, it is government of the source countries that are responsible for the recruiting. If you don't have any workers that have been identified or have been referred to you, for example, with the last example, like on the farm, on the tree nursery in Ontario, they already knew the names of the workers. but those workers would have to go to their government office and they have to be in the system. So, if you don't know any workers that you would like to hire and you're looking for hiring Mexicans, that might be a good option, because again, the government will help you to identify those workers. Unfortunately, you're not able to interview. You can provide your wish list, what would you like to see in terms of experience and skills and so on, but you wouldn't know until the last moment, until you actually see the worker and what are you getting. With the X stream and with the low wage stream, employers are responsible for recruitment and selection of workers. There are different ways how to do it, like referrals, advertising, working with the recruitment agencies in Canada or overseas. Also, to answer the question when employers can start the recruitment process, I would say it depends on the individual circumstances. If you're pretty sure in your LMA application, start as the sooner the better. But just make sure that workers know that it's a longer process. If for example, you have to wait for your application in the regular stream. And
there's just another question in the chat from Martha.
Okay.
They're just asking, can we bring seasonal workers through the ag stream instead of SOP?
Through the agricultural stream instead of SOP. From my experience, yes, you can bring the seasonal workers through the agricultural stream instead of SOP. If you are bringing workers from Mexico or Caribbean countries, in this case, they don't need to go through this government system. It's just regular ag stream applications. I'm looking at more questions. Getting the person to Canada from their country, it is hard to help them from here. Yes, it is hard. The processing times differ from country to country, and unfortunately, when you're doing your recruitment, especially if the business is seasonal, I would recommend to go you just go on Google and check CIC processing times, and the first site will be the processing time for applications for workers for work permits from outside of Canada. You can pick the country, you can pick the type of application. It will be temporary resident for a work permit, and it will show you the processing times. So it will at least help you to plan how long it is before the worker could arrive. The other question is from Chelsea. I'm not sure how to start the recruitment process, on which country I should be looking at. How do you go about contacting them, etc.? This is a good question, and it's hard to answer. I would say first think what kind of skill set you're looking for. Are you looking for English speaking or limited English? How long can you wait? And depending on that, you can decide which way to go. As an example, I'm based in Saskatchewan, and we worked with a lot of grain farmers over here. And there is only a certain skill set that grain farmers are looking for farm equipment operators. And basically, we identified the countries in the world that have similar farming practices. And it's Eastern Europe, Ukraine, South Africa, and Mexico. And this is where the workers are hired from. I know with landscape and nursery, it's probably a bit more flexibility. So I would first look at the countries. I would try to talk to some recruitment agencies if you're prepared to get some extra cost and pay extra fees. Online advertising is good as well, for the jobs, and you can see who applied. My only problem with the online advertisement, your mailbox will be filled with applications from India, Pakistan, or overseas, and sometimes you're not considering hiring from those countries, but you may get some random ones that may draw your attention. Unfortunately, it's a complicated process. But if you're doing it for the first time, maybe even the recruitment agency could be a way to go. Is it possible to get a digital version of the Service Canada manual so that we can understand everything better? The digital version is requested through ATIP notes. So it's a process. And I'm not sure I can share what we've got, but I'm open to talk to Stacy. If you have any questions, I can send you some pages or some information from that. So, and yeah, I think we answered the questions and we can continue. So just to go back to 3 streams that we are looking at. How long is the employment? With SOAP, it's 8 months maximum between January 1st and December 15th. Extreme and low wage up to 24 months, but it can be seasonal as well. Advertising requirements for primary agriculture occupations. Advertising requirements are suspended, so you don't need to advertise. For the low wage, you need to advertise minimum of 4 weeks within the last 3 months, and it has to be 3 different activities. 1 should include a national job bank and 2 underrepresented groups. So it's a bit complicated, and with advertising, I can answer those questions if needed, but there are certain requirements what needs to be included in the advertisement. For example, I dealt with the employers in the past that would say, "Oh, we always advertise," and we can look at the advertising, and it's an advertising on Kijiji or Indeed, but it doesn't specify a work location or a certain wage, and this advertising unfortunately cannot be used for the LMI application. So there is a list what needs to be included, and sometimes I would recommend to re-advertise, rather than to apply with what you've got and wait, whether you will receive it or not. And the wage rates for SOAP and Extreme, the wage rates, it's either a minimum wage in the province or wage that is determined annually by Service Canada for each commodity groups. I just checked online, for example, for flowers, it's $16.71 in Ontario. And for the low wage, it must be a median wage on the job band for the certain occupation in the economic region, or the wage that is paid to the current employees in the same occupation. But there is a note, those employees must be employees with the same skills and experience. So if you have someone who has been working for you for 5 or 10 years and you're hiring somebody from overseas, it doesn't mean that you have to pay the same wage. You just need to explain why you're not paying the same wage, because you have a worker with 5 or 10 years experience. If you're hiring from overseas, you're only hiring someone with, say, 20 experience. So that's a reasonable explanation why you're not paying the same as you're paying to the Canadians. And we're almost done. Accommodation requirements for SOAP, there is accommodation must be provided to the seasonal workers at no cost except BC, and you need to have a housing inspection report. Extreme and low wage for Extreme, still housing inspection report is required. It must be within 8 months prior to submitting an LMIA. And if the worker is provided with an accommodation on site, you're only allowed to charge $30 for the low skilled worker and up to 30% of gross monthly income, including the utilities for a higher skilled occupation. And low wage, you just must ensure that there is accommodation available in the area, and the cost of accommodation is no more than 30%. Very often, I advise employers to submit, for example, if you know that there likely will be this house that will be rented out to the worker, just a letter from the landlord saying that we've been approached by employer name X about leasing accommodation to their temporary foreign workers. We have accommodation available. This is the cost, or even some copies of the advertising for the rental accommodation in your area would help as well. For the flight, employers pay round-trip transportation. Some cost can be recovered for seasonal agricultural worker program. For example, no more than $560 for workers from Mexico in the province of Ontario. And Extreme and low wage employer must pay a round-trip transportation cost, and the cost cannot be recovered from the wages. And you need to pay for the return cost as well. And we have this question asked in the past: if the employment is terminated and the worker is going home, you have to pay for their flight as well. And the advice from Service Canada: if the employment is terminated and if the worker is moving to another employer, still buy a return ticket to that worker. Some employers would do, they would just ask the worker to sign like a statement saying that I'm not going to Canada. I waive my right to like be eligible to the return transportation. My new employer will pay for my return transportation. And like it could help you with the inspection if you know that the worker is staying in Canada. And
just a couple more questions in the chat. Catherine was wondering what the BC rules are for accommodation and flights.
I can send you separate information about that. Unfortunately, because there are different rules in different provinces, I can't exactly say with BC. We work with Valley a lot on if you're looking for a seasonal agricultural worker program, but if you can just, we will be able to send you more information about that, Catherine. Question from Marta, can we access the presentation after the webinar? Yes. And question from Leslie, does the high wage program need to pay for the flight as well? No, with the high wage program, you don't need to pay for the flight.
And then there's just one more question in the Q&A from you might have already answered this, but to be sure, $1,000 only when LMIA is approved, not when rejected or incomplete.
No. You need to pay, it's a processing fee, which is not refundable. You don't pay $1,000 at the time of submitting your LMIA online. In the past, you had to pay it like with the paper application. Now, the way the system is set up, you submit your LMIA online application, and shortly after, like within the days, they will send you like a request to pay. Like assumption is that they are sending this request only after they like double check that you submitted all the like necessary documents, but it doesn't mean that your LMIA is approved, and it can be rejected as well. And like the $1,000 per worker per position like is not refundable. And the very last one, this is something like I just checked it this morning. The processing times are updated, and they're more or less within what it is. So stop in 9 business days, extreme 14 business days, low wage 52 business days. Yes, so it's a lot, unfortunately. We have just a couple of more slides. As I mentioned, there are certain provincial registration requirements, especially like British Columbia, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. They require employers to be registered with their local provincial immigration authorities before hiring a temporary foreign worker. In the British Columbia is a temporary foreign worker protection unit. Processing takes approximately 12 weeks. I haven't checked it in the past months, so that was before New Year. I know that they were very much behind, and especially those employers whose registration was expired, like had to wait before they can submit an LMA application. But the registration is only 15 minutes, no application fee is required, and it's valid for up to 3 years. With Manitoba, the registration is with employment standards. Processing takes approximately 2 to 4 weeks, like I would say more 2 than 4. No application fee. It's just like 1 2-page form that needs to be completed and faxed or emailed. And registration is valid for 1 year. Manitoba is looking more for the information about your recruitment. How are you hiring? Are you using the agency? Have you identified the workers and so on? And with Saskatchewan, the registration is done with the Ministry of Labor Relations and Workplace Safety. Applications are processed within 10 business days, no application fee, and registration is valid for 2 years. If you are in one of those provinces and if you registered in the past, my recommendation, even if you decide, for example, this year I'm not hiring foreign workers, just keep your registration valid, because it's always easier to extend it rather than apply for a new one. It will save you some time and like less work when you decide to apply for your LMIA in the future.
There's I think Jasmine was just following up on her on their previous comment. They've submitted a few LMIAs that were incomplete, and there was never a request for money for those.
Okay, yeah, that's a good tip. So they are looking like, yeah. So if the application is incomplete, they usually return it, like, or they request to like provide this. So that's a good tip, yeah. And so just to summarize, where to start if this is the first time you're submitting LMIA. Step 1, determine your stream, NOC, and wage. And NOC and wage will help you to determine your stream, and make sure you're familiar with the program requirements for your particular stream. And step 2, conduct recruitment and advertising activities if applicable. One note, even for ag streams, the advertising requirements are waived, but there is a little note saying that employers are still required to conduct the advertising and try to hire Canadians as permanent residents. So if you do try to hire, and if you do conduct any activities, I would recommend just save the copies or like screenshots of those advertising, just in case you've been asked. But don't do it like just like do it. Oh, for example, like if you have like a job board in your local coffee shop, like take a picture of it, showing that you're still trying to hire a Canadian. Step 3, prepare and submit an application, which will include business legitimacy or housing inspection if it is required. And step 4, retain all related documentation for 6 years. Like try to be organized, keep the payroll records, keep all the information about the payroll deduction, accommodation, and so on, because of the ESDC audits. Unfortunately, like it needs to be done. And just like key takeaways, my advice is temporary foreign worker program can be overwhelming and confusing, and you don't know where to start. But once you've done it by yourself, once you've done it first year, it will, and if you've done it right, it will be easier like second, third, and fourth year. There are some changes, but it will be easier. It won't be so overwhelming for you. And also, like from my experience, right now the LMIA is online, and the offices are much more friendly when they are trying to request for more documentation or getting like some clarifications. So I would say it's a more employer-friendly process than it was several years ago. And another tip as well, like with the LMIA online, like if you submitted your first application, if it was approved, if you're doing an application next year, you can copy your first application. Yes, you need to change the dates, but like the business information or some questions like why are you hiring the foreign worker, like will remain the same. So it will be much easier. Also, there are options. You can do the application yourself, or you can hire an immigration consultant or lawyer. There are fees involved if you're hiring a third party. I would say depending on the application, the fees varies from $2,500 to like $4,000 or $5,000, depending on the complexity of the application, whether the transition plan is needed or not. And in addition, if it's a non-primary agriculture, you still have to pay those processing fees. My recommendation also, if you are working with a consultant or a lawyer, it's good to have help, and it's good to have someone who will help you to navigate the process, but ask questions, have the copy of your complete and full application. Again, it can be uploaded from the LMIA online portal. Have a copy of all the supporting documentation that is submitted with your application, because first, you are the one who is responsible for the employer compliance in the future. And second, if you decide to submit an application yourself, it's good to have a good start. And make sure that you like understand what is in the transition plan, what is the requirements for the wage, for the accommodation in the application that was submitted by a third party. So online portal, user-friendly, easy to navigate. There are still some glitches. Yeah, like there are certain, like for example, if the file has a very long name, I find it like it's impossible to upload the file. So I would just like name it very short. And there are also requirements from like how heavy is the file that you can upload. When in doubt, call the employer contact center. They answer within 10 minutes. And yeah, like they do provide the generic answers, but like it helps, especially if you feel stuck or like you don't know like what to do or where to go on the website and how to navigate the program. If you're hiring under temporary foreign worker program, the worker is issued an employer-specific work permit. However, employers sometimes ask the question, so like if we are committing to someone for 2 years, do we need to keep a worker for 2 years? What if something happens with the business, or like the worker doesn't have the skills that the worker presented on the interview? So employment can be terminated, and it's the same rules and requirements apply as for the local workers. But you as an employer, if it's a low wage or ACT scheme, you're responsible for paying the return airfare. So that's a cost as well. And I talked about employer compliance. So again, keep the records for 6 years, beginning on the first day of the period of employment for which the work permit is issued. And this is all for today for the information on the temporary foreign worker program. My contact is here. Like, we will get back about BC, and you can go to our website and subscribe to our news if you're interested to learn more about temporary foreign worker program or other HR webinars or HR educational activities that we can offer to the employers of the temporary foreign workers or local or Canadian workers. And I'll stop sharing my screen. If there are any questions, please feel free asking. We have 2 minutes left, and oh, there is it. So Chelsea confirmed that once CNLA application is completed, then you're charged $1,000. It would be regardless of being approved or not. Yes. Well, thank you for your interest, and thank you for your questions. We will share the presentation, and there will be more presentations coming, mostly on HR issues and HR topics. And yeah, if there are any specific questions in future, you can always contact us, and hopefully we will be able to answer and help. Are there any resources for the recruitment process? That's a question for Chelsea. We are currently updating HR toolkit for the employers, which like will include some information on the recruitment. If you're interested in recruitment of workers from overseas, we will be releasing in the next 2 months a webinar and the e-learning training on how to work with, how to partner with the recruitment agencies for hiring workers from overseas or workers locally. So it might be a resource that could help with your question.